Nigeria's political landscape begins to shift as major opposition figures rally under a new banner. The International Monetary Fund sends a stern message to Abuja about looming economic risks. Labor unrest brews in the Federal Capital Territory. And from the energy sector to international diplomacy, there's no shortage of major developments. Hello and welcome to Alive TV. I'm Khadija Ibrahim. Here are the top stories. Atiku, Obi and Mark launch a new political alliance ahead of 2027. IMF warns Nigeria to review its 2025 budget or risk crisis. FCT workers threaten strike, Wike steps in. Kola Adesina, a prominent business executive, is applauding the bold decisions taken by President Bola Tinubu's administration, calling them both unpopular but necessary. Speaking in a recent interview, Adesina described the president's approach as unusually courageous, especially in confronting long-standing issues that previous administrations often avoided. He pointed specifically to the removal of the fuel subsidy, which he noted had cost Nigeria nearly $10 billion every year, and the devaluation of the naira. Two difficult policy shifts that have triggered short-term discomfort but are seen by many experts as steps toward long-term stability. According to him, there is never a perfect time to make such decisions, especially in a country facing deep structural challenges. But when change becomes essential, he says, delaying it only deepens the damage. Adesina acknowledged that these reforms are tough on Nigerians, but insisted that they represent the kind of difficult medicine the nation needs to correct decades of overdependence on crude oil. He emphasized the urgent need for Nigeria to pivot towards gas, saying the country must start developing gas-centric industries to drive energy, manufacturing, and export diversification. In his words, we've concentrated for too long on crude oil. It's time to move forward.
Two things more than any other thing: vision and courage. The courage that has been displayed by Mr. President is quite unusual in this part. The hard decisions that we've spoken about for God knows when, he's been able to confront those two twin problems. First, with regards to fuel subsidy, gulping about $10 billion every year. So he came in day one, faced that head on, and then the issue of devaluation of the currency and floating it, ensuring that there's transparency and confidence built in the last few months. So those are things I really would say describe this administration as against any other I've seen. Hard decisions in life, they always have consequences, and those consequences are really far-reaching oftentimes. So there's no best time to take a decision, most especially when it's so needed, it's so central and essential for a nation like ours. A drain pipe of $10 billion per annum isn't a joke for a nation that doesn't have enough money or resources. So I would say, yes, the decision might look very tough, but trust me 100%, that's what Nigeria needs. As a business, part of what we've done is to adapt, and we adapted very quickly. Which is to adjust our businesses, our processes, our operations to the reality on ground. And we equally had to take a hard look at our own operations and say to ourselves, how do we support government? Quite a number of school of thoughts arose at the time when those decisions were taken as regards the number of staff we have so that we can shed some of them. But we said, no, we're not going to do that. Rather, we'll keep our own part of the bargain to ensure that there's job creation, and then we ensure that the government's intention ultimately comes out with good future results. The government aggressively moved the entire sector and the leadership of the sector to think gas and how do we utilize gas as much as we should. We've concentrated for too long on crude oil, and I think it's really time we pivot away from that and do as much as we can. Qatar has done incredibly well using their gas infrastructure and resource. We need to do more of that, build more gas-centric industries and ensure that we're able to produce. People now have confidence in the fact that we know the rate of exchange is not determined by one individual. It's not one where the arbitrage is so large. So a lot of clarity has been put in that place. Transparency is there, confidence is there. And because of the population of Nigeria, everybody wants to come to Nigeria. The population is attractive. A lot of companies are coming in and more will still come. We're going to do far more than we're doing currently. We believe we need to build this economy first so that truly Nigeria can be that gun that we've always referred to in the map of Africa. Let's fire and pull the trigger. And Mr. President is helping us do just that.
In a bold political move ahead of the 2027 general elections, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, and former Senate President David Mark have joined forces under the African Democratic Congress, a coalition aiming to unseat President Bola Tinubu. The unveiling of this opposition bloc took place at the Yar'Adua Center in Abuja, where David Mark was announced as the interim national chairman, with former Osun State Governor Rauf as interim secretary. Peter Obi, speaking at the event, emphasized the group's shared vision for what he called competent, capable, and compassionate leadership. He stated that the coalition will always put the Nigerian people first. The event attracted several political heavyweights, including Nasir El-Rufai, Rotimi Amechi, Deti Baba Ahmed, and Senator Ireti Kingibe, sparking widespread speculation about the direction of the 2027 race, but the ruling All Progressive Congress quickly dismissed the formation. The presidency described the ADC as a conclave of internally displaced politicians, claiming the coalition lacked focus, ideology, and grassroots support. Despite the criticism, political analysts say the ADC alliance mirrors the strategy that led to the fall of the PDP government in 2015 and could present the strongest challenge yet to the Tinubu administration if it holds. The International Monetary Fund has issued a strong warning to Nigeria, urging an urgent review of the 2025 national budget to prevent what it calls a looming fiscal crisis. According to the IMF's latest Article IV report, Nigeria's budget was based on an oil price benchmark of $75 per barrel, but global prices have now dropped to around $68, creating a revenue shortfall. The IMF projects that Nigeria's fiscal deficit could exceed 4.7% of GDP if adjustments are not made immediately. Among its key recommendations were cut wasteful administrative costs by at least 0.6% of GDP to ensure that savings from the fuel subsidy removal, estimated at over 2% of GDP, are properly redirected to social spending, to tighten monetary policy to curb inflation and stabilize the naira, expand cash transfer programs to protect vulnerable Nigerians. The IMF also praised recent foreign exchange reforms and noted a growing convergence between official and parallel market rates. But it warned that unless the government recalibrates its assumptions, Nigeria could face economic instability in the second half of the year. There's growing frustration in Nigeria's manufacturing and petroleum sectors as efforts to revive the country's refineries continue to stall. Despite over $3 billion committed to rehabilitating the Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries, none of them are fully operational. Now, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and leading petroleum marketers are renewing calls for the privatization of these assets, arguing that government-run systems have repeatedly failed. They insist that handing over refinery operations to private investors will accelerate efficiency, reduce Nigeria's dependence on fuel imports, and bring down pump prices in the long run. The debate over privatization has long divided policymakers, but with the Dangote refinery beginning operations and fuel queues persisting nationwide, many stakeholders believe the time for decisive action is now. Now to legal matters, where the Abuja High Court has struck out a 500 billion naira lawsuit filed by former boxer Bash Ali against former Minister of Youth and Sports Sunday Dare. In a ruling delivered at Court 4, High Court of the FCT Maitama, Justice U.P. Kekemeke dismissed the suit, calling it frivolous, status barred, and a complete waste of the court's time. Lead counsels Bode and the chambers of Festus Keyamo represented the defense as the judge ruled that there was no valid contract or agreement, either signed or implied, between the ministry and Bash Ali for the now abandoned Guinness World Record boxing project he had promoted. Justice Kekemeke further clarified that neither Sunday Dare nor the Ministry of Youth and Sports ever endorsed or executed any contract to sponsor or support the Guinness fight. This decision, according to the court, brings the entire matter to a final and legal close. Bash Ali, who over 5 years consistently accused the former minister and other government officials of extortion and defamation, was found to have based his claims on misrepresented facts and unproven allegations. The court emphasized that these repeated claims had caused undue distraction and wasted valuable judicial time. Bash Ali's claim that Sunday Dare was involved in a $12 million transaction between the federal government and a former chief of staff was proven to be false. At the time of the transaction allegedly occurred, Mr. Dare was not in office and had no involvement in the matter. During his tenure, he handled no files or communications relating to any such payments. With this ruling, the court has drawn a final line under the long-running controversy, calling time on years of drama, accusations, and what it described as deliberate misinformation. In the Federal Capital Territory, tensions are rising as civil servants have issued a fresh ultimatum to the government over unmet demands on salary structure, allowances, and welfare. The workers say unless their grievances are addressed in the coming days, they will embark on a strike that could cripple essential services across Abuja. Minister of the FCT, Wike, has stepped in to mediate. He held closed-door talks with union leaders this afternoon, calling for restraint and pledging that government will act swiftly to resolve the issues. But union sources say they will not back down unless they see concrete commitments, raising the likelihood of disruptions in the capital as early as next week. And in Edo State, the political atmosphere is tense as the Supreme Court prepares to deliver its final verdict on the contentious governorship election. Both the All Progressive Congress and the People's Democratic Party have expressed confidence that the court's decision will favor them. The case has centered on allegations of vote manipulation, voter suppression, and irregular collation during the polls. Observers say the ruling will be critical, not just for Edo, but for public confidence in the judiciary's role in electoral matters nationwide. The verdict is expected later this month. Now to international stories making headlines across the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a major trade agreement with Vietnam aimed at curbing China's indirect exports to the American market. As part of the deal, the United States will impose a 20% tariff on all Vietnamese exports and a steeper 40% duty on goods passing through Vietnam from China. In exchange, Vietnamese exporters will enjoy zero tariffs on U.S. goods, including liquefied natural gas and automobiles. The Vietnamese government says the agreement marks a breakthrough in bilateral trade and presents new opportunities for cooperation. However, analysts warn that Vietnam's internal challenges, including a coal-dependent power system and limited infrastructure, may slow the expected benefits of this deal. This move is seen as part of a wider U.S. strategy to counter China's dominance in global manufacturing and trade flows by redirecting supply chains through Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, financial markets around the world are on edge. Investors are bracing for potential volatility as they await key data from the U.S. Labor Department. The June payroll figures due later this week could determine whether the Federal Reserve takes further steps on interest rates. But that's not the only concern. The markets are also watching closely as the July 9th tariff deadline approaches in the U.S. While in Europe, an upcoming budget vote in France is expected to test confidence in the Eurozone. Amid all of this, market behavior has been cautious. The US dollar remains relatively stable, but there's been a noticeable shift toward gold and government bonds, signaling that investors are playing it safe for now. Analysts say this week could be a turning point depending on how these events unfold. In the Middle East, there are signs of cautious optimism as Hamas says it is considering a new ceasefire proposal brokered by the United States. The proposed agreement includes a 2-month truce, a gradual release of hostages, and the partial withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. While Israel has not yet issued a formal response, sources suggest the government is open to negotiations under certain conditions. Talks are being supported by Qatar and Egypt, and if successful, the deal could mark a major breakthrough in efforts to end the month-long conflict that has devastated Gaza and displaced thousands of civilians. And that's where we wrap it up for today. Political tides shifting, economic warnings ringing loud, and the world watching, waiting, and reacting. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Khadija Ibrahim, and this is Alive TV.